When you are hyper visual with your presentation, everything changes. When you're vague, it also goes downhill. That's the conversation today on the podcast. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Well, welcome to the podcast. Glad that you are here. One of my favorite conversations and subjects that we talk about in our community, whether you're on our coaching team, whether you're thinking about joining our team, or whether you just like listening to what we do here. But having a compelling visual process is by far, without question, the bedrock of how you grow your business coaching practice. You can be amazing at what you do. You can bring value. You can bring results. But if you're not compelling with a visual presentation to get the client, you likely are going to struggle. Okay, that's not to be insensitive or offensive or whatever. It's just I'm just telling it to you like it is. I think you want to know it that way anyway. By the way, if you are not on our coaching team and you're curious about like how does this whole thing work with the systematized, done with you collaborative system, franchise-like, no franchise fees, how does that work? You simply go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com and grab a time for a simple conversation. We'll share with you exactly how it works. We'll send you some information as well. That way you can determine if it's worth learning more about or not. Okay, so there are several different things. I'm going to just kind of present the case, if you will, on why having a compelling visual process is, it's not cute. It's not just about being fun. It's not a neat, none of those types of things. It absolutely is critical. Why? Number one, people believe what they can see. Now, what I was going to do, and I just decided because I've done it before, and today I didn't want to get that weedy on stats, but you can research them yourself if you'd like to, on these stats that are available all around what happens when we process things from a visual perspective, okay? So I want to kind of paint a picture just for a moment. Like in our system, we have a couple of different tools that are hyper-visual to kind of tell the story about how a business can become more profitable significantly, okay? Has questions in there, bar graphs, the whole thing. It's a guided process that really does tell the story. That prospect who we're talking to about, working with them together on helping them to grow the business, what they're looking at visually, their brain starts to turning the gears differently because of the visuals. If the visuals weren't there, they're left up to just the audio processing only, and they get to kind of choose whether they're leaning in, whether they're believing it or not, whether they're understanding it or not. And oftentimes, so many people without the visual process turn everything into word salad. In other words, it just becomes a lot of different gunked up words that don't always connect together. But when you have the visual process that does, if not all, the majority of the heavy lifting, everything changes. Why? Because now the prospect truly buys in and believes things differently because of the visual. A clear picture builds trust faster than a clear argument. So, by the way, if you're having a conversation with the prospect, especially if you're on our coaching team, you're in the conversation. Sure, you're going to get questions that, because remember, the business owners, they're overwhelmed. They're spinning all kinds of plates, right? They've been abused. They've been taken advantage of, all these different things. So when we're sitting down with them and showing with them what's possible, there's times here and there where someone goes, man, is that really possible? Is that? And so you can get into the wrong kind of conversation, which you don't want to do. But when you have the presentation that's a visual, hyper guided, linear process, I'm not talking about slide decks. I'm talking about a very interactive, guided process, that squelches what any type of argument would ever be able to do for 1,000 different reasons, right? It just makes it clear because the presentation that it delivers changes everything. The visuals turn abstract value into a felt experience, okay? Oftentimes, like if you sit down just with a traditional slide deck, okay, which is, I wouldn't use a slide deck for any of this anymore for nothing. But when you use a compelling, interactive visual process, that turns the abstract, just the optics. We actually work on tools all the time just to improve for our coaching community the optics of the conversation. And so when you have that visual throughput that's interactive, it has a felt experience to it that by itself, it improves the value, but it also improves their believability in you because of the visual process. And I'll share with you in a moment just a couple of the tools that we use in our coaching community if you're interested, just to give you context. A weak presentation, this is what's really important. This is one of my favorite bullet points here. A weak presentation can actually undercut a strong coach. This goes back to what I said earlier. And again, I know it's sometimes hard to hear, but you can have a lot of skill. You really can. You can have a lot of like, I know what I'm doing. I understand, business growth. I understand. That's fine. But when you're left by yourself to just explain it with your words only, the buy-in at that point, you almost have to be a highly, highly, highly skilled salesperson because you're left with having to, unfortunately, almost convince. And that essentially, and even if you have a slide deck, by the way, and the slide deck is a weak presentation, it undermines and it undercuts your skill and your ability. That's the whole point and purpose around the hypertension of what happens psychologically when you have this significantly improved visual process that's interactive. Changes so much. Now you take somebody who does have a lot of skill and they're a strong coach. Now they look like $1 million automatically because if they're skilled and they're really strong in their presentation style and their confidence and whatnot. Because of the visual process, it just 10x's that whole experience in a very, very, very big way. Next, simplicity beats sophistication. Every single time, no questions asked. Simplicity beats sophistication. In an overly complex, cluttered world, a lot of people think that we have to be overly complex and overly sophisticated. And let me take a moment, and this is going to be one of those where I'm going to take the risk of stepping on some toes for the right reasons. If you're an overthinker, if you're what's the word? Not design. I'm losing my train of thought. Bear with me. Bear with me. It'll come to me in a moment. Engineer, that's the word. If you've had any type of work in your history that has engineering to do with it, right? Even if you're a highly skilled IT professional and you love the idea of coaching, there's some risks for you because this idea that you have to be so incredibly detailed to be sophisticated actually becomes problematic. Why? Oftentimes that's void of being simple. The move is having a hyper interactive visual process that's actually very simple in its interpretation, because that's what improves value. That's what improves optics. And quite frankly, that's what improves the ball game at the end of the day and puts everything on your side. Because again, when you have it dialed in, what's happening is the visuals do the work. You see, we don't preach in our community. We don't preach selling in its traditional sense. Yes, you have to persuade. Like everything's about persuasion. We joke all the time. I joke all the time. My daughter, who's almost 16, she's our youngest, constantly persuades me to go get Andy's ice cream. little ice cream place in our community. She absolutely obsesses over ice cream. So persuasion is real. It's a part of life. It's not about selling, but selling by itself, it removes relationship. Selling by itself removes opportunity for deeper engagement, opportunities for referrals, and so on. But when you have a process that is interactive and so compelling that your prospects are leaning in, now what happens is because the persuasion is here because you want to work with them and because you believe in them, you believe in their business, and you can help them to grow the profitability and the revenues of their business. So you're still going to have to sit down and have a process that's got to show why interacting with you, why working with you would even matter. Okay? So it's the way it works. So when you're simple, that persuasion changes everything. Okay. And then last, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to sit down with someone and you're going to take their time, if you take their time and you're boring and you're void of being compelling and you're void of a process that makes a lot of sense, that's simple, and I've seen it. We've had coaches before come to us where what they had been using was extremely complicated hyperdecks that were totally overwhelming. They missed the mark. They were frustrated because they weren't landing clients, and it was because their visual presentation was poor. That's why we worked for so long, for so many years, to provide a valuable, what we call a profit challenge, that is a hyper-visual process that anybody can run. Our team trains our coaches on running the process. It's a lot of fun. At the questions are already baked in there, so you're not having to make up anything. You are the guide. It actually sets you up as being the thought leader that you really are. But you're not having to say that you're the thought leader. You're not having to convince them that you can help them. You're showing them through the visuals of a simple process. And then in our community, in our system, we also have what we call a little brother to this, that is a very, very, very simple tool that's called a simulation tool that shows the power of the compound effect. And when you combine and compound multiple strategies together, of how that can significantly improve the profitability of the business. So the way that we work it, we have 2 visual presentations. Oftentimes we are utilizing the first one, that's the simulation tool, to kind of teach business growth theory. It's kind of setting the tone. It's setting the stage, planting seeds, if you will. And it draws curiosity enough through the visual process that when we're done with that process, it puts us in a position as the coach and the strategist to go, so you see how this works. Now, let me make an invitation to you to go to the next step, and let's sit down and go through this process together through a profit challenge where we can sit down, find more than $100,000 in your business in 45 minutes without you spending any additional dollars on marketing or advertising. And my commitment to you when we're done, I'm going to give you a 17-page roadmap, and it's going to show you the exact business strategies that you need to focus on. Okay? That's what we have in our coaching system for all of our coaches. If you're new to our coaching team, that's what's coming to you. If you haven't got to it yet, certainly, by the way, total side note, if you are on our coaching team, master the simulation tool before anything else. It's the bedrock of learning profit acceleration. It's the bedrock of just learning how to navigate business growth with any business. And it's the entry phase to the profit challenge. And you'll learn the profit challenge process a whole lot more. Now, if you're not on our coaching team and you're like, what are you talking about? That's in our system. Again, I would just encourage you, I'd love to extend an invite to you to join us on a call at some point where we can explain how this whole thing works. Bottom line, at the end of the day, visual presentation changes everything. Even, by the way, if you're skilled at giving advice, we don't give advice. We have an entire operating system that we install in the business to help them to grow it. And we believe, as good stewards, as a faith-driven business coach, when you talk about stewarding the time of a business owner, If they're going to pay us, by the way, the average coach typically charges around $2,000 per month for one-on-one coaching. We have coaches who charge $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. Some coaches who charge $1,000. We have a advisor for you that sits down, walks through this whole process to help you kind of figure that out. But regardless of that, we walk through multiple strategies that are a full operating system over typically a period of time. And when you install them correctly, that's the compound effect. It's all born out of the visual process. You're setting the tone of the coaching relationship from the visual process. You're setting the tone as the thought leader because of the visual process. You're setting the tone of what's possible for the business owner because of the visual process. There you go. I hope that has added value to you today. Until next time, take care.